Welcome to the Blue Rush Podcast, our podcast from the New York Post. This episode of Blue Rush is presented by Tri-State Cadillac Dealers. Be iconic. Visit your Cadillac showroom today. Now, today wasn't the outcome that the Giants wanted, guys. Giants fall 31-18 to the Detroit Lions. They fall to 7-3, third in the NFC East, as we talked about, and there's never a pretty loss in the NFL. It's even uglier because of the injuries. I think it's even uglier because we had a 300-yard passing day from Daniel Jones, but it wasn't what we wanted. Saquon Barkley locked up, tackling was bad. I mean, just all around what the Giants didn't want to put on tape.
They punched the Giants in the face. They won the physical battle. They won the turnover battle. And they just let them have it the entire game. This was, I don't want to give a ton of credit to Paul, but Paul called this. This was exactly what he said was going to happen. An ugly, turnover-riddled game, and they got their butts beat physically, right? A lot of injuries. And when I see necks on the injury report, you got punched in the face. And we had neck and jaw injury. Beat the New York Giants
they
up.
They also had an injury, which I was on record earlier this season as saying I did not like seeing Adoree Jackson back there returning punts. I didn't like it. I know other players do it. I understand starters do this in this league. I think the guy is one of the 2 or 3 most valuable players on the team. And I wrote that it's just not worth this risk. They took the risk. I'm interested what you guys think, especially Lawrence, because as a special teams guy, you want the best guys out there. I get it. Look, there were a lot of reasons they lost, and Adoree Jackson getting hurt was not the reason they lost, but he's out with a knee injury. He's going to be out a little while here, and we'll see how severe it is. Returning a punt, he's not Deion Sanders back there. I don't think he looked that great all season when he's asked to return to punts. It was an overreaction to Richie James dropping a couple against Seattle. Just bad move. I think a real bad move by Brian Daboll.
Yeah. I agree.
You don't think he should have been back there?
Without going on a rant, which I feel like doing, I was so livid when he got hurt that I kind of just started digging into my past, and I'm thinking, did Tom Coughlin ever have a starter back there? No. Brian Daboll has to live with this decision. He's made a lot of good ones this year. And we'll talk about starting Shane Lemieux, which was another big mistake when Azudu has played his ass off since starting in that Jacksonville game for Brederson when he got hurt. Why do you put Lemieux in there after he started one game in the last 18, 19 months? That was a mistake. But the biggest one on this team right now is Adoree Jackson. Here's what you're losing. And I looked it up just to make sure I know what the hell I was talking about here. The Giants have had 19 punt returns this year, guys. They average 5 yards per punt return. So 2 punt returns a game on average is what they're doing for 10 yards. You lose Adoree Jackson over 10 yards of field position. It's a huge mistake, one they're going to live with. If he's back there to fair catch the ball, I'm good with that. But like you said, Paul, Richie James fumbled returning the ball, and we knew why, right? Let's diagnose them. Yeah. One was because of the sleeves. Okay, we know that's why. Don't wear sleeves.
Take the sleeves off.
He didn't wear sleeves.
Very simple. This is so damn simple, and coaches overthink stuff. Maybe it was public pressure, but they overthink stuff. And then the other one was an incredible play by that special teams cover guy for the Seattle Seahawks who came in with a flying elbow. Tip your cap. That's just bad luck. 2 things happen on the same day. Richie James has, for the most part, fielded punts. You do not put Adoree Jackson back there unless his only instructions are fair catch this football. That is it, because at the end of the day, you're gaining 10 yards of field position. That's on average. It's not like we return punts to the house, guys. So this is a massive, massive mistake that Brian Daboll is going to have to live with and put his head on the pillow for the next 4 or 5 weeks or however long he's out. Huge.
It's one of those mistakes. It's like when you go to Vegas and you don't have much of a hand. You're trying to force a hand. He was trying to make some sort of play. He needed to put back some sort of playmaker on a team where you don't have that many playmakers. So when it's something where, okay, Richie James dropped those punts and all, you're looking at your roster, you're looking at how you could create some sort of offense, a punt return of 15 yards or 20. Adoree can get you that. I think it's just something you kind of have to just chalk up, and it just went to the type of day.
But the risk reward is not worth it.
Yeah,
Would you agree?
and
I'll give you that.
And who said Adoree Jackson is a big playmaker as a punt returner? He's done it. He's not a big. He's not.
Guys, last time I checked, it takes 11, and this punt return team is somewhere in the late 20s, maybe 30th in the NFL. He is back there and should only be back there to fair catch the football. We're only gaining 10 yards. That's what the stats tell me. It's not worth it.
It was bad. But look. I mean that is the symptom. That is a problem that's going to be happening moving forward. We said it. If Saquon Barkley came into this week as the leading rusher in the league, right? And the Lions were 31st in the league in run defense. So you say, okay, that's an easy one, right? It's never easy, right? That's, if form held all the time, we wouldn't need to do this. We would just punch it into a computer and figure out what happens. You knew the Lions were going to at least make an effort to load up against the run, load up against it. They did. Andrew Thomas said in the locker room, we did a bad job of getting Saquon to the second level. He never got to the second level. And look, once you have to throw the ball 44 times, it's going to be a big problem with this team. Big problem. They don't have enough offensive weapons. They don't have enough pass protection. You mentioned Lemieux. His third snap back, he got beat for a sack. Now, Josh Ezeudu, the rookie, did have a neck issue during the week and missed some time, but he also did come in the game. He did come on the game.
So that tells me he could play.
Yeah.
That was another poor decision. This game since Jacksonville, since Ezeudu was inserted for Brederson, has really ran the ball well. I don't know why you mess with that chemistry. Bring in Lemieux, who hasn't played in literally since 17 snaps of game one last season.
Yeah.
He's a whole milk drinker now. He's an automatic starter. I mean, listen, that Brian Daboll and staff have done a lot of things right. This was certainly not one of them. Those two decisions, not that they ended the game or caused them to lose, but why disrupt that chemistry? And then, of course, you lose, obviously, what's his name? Phillips later on at right tackle, and then Feliciano. I mean, thank God they're deep, but I just don't know why you rocked the boat there. Ezeudu was a great run blocker, and he was playing really well. So
yeah, because we were talking about at the pre-show, the preview show, how it was a good problem for the Giants to have as many offensive linemen as they had. And Paul, like you were saying, if Ezeudu didn't play or practice that much throughout the week, then Lemieux was definitely going to get that start, and they were going to probably have some sort of rotation when it came to that. But when you're talking about a neck and throwing him in there, I can see why they would go with a Lemieux on there. But all that did, honestly, no matter who they put in there, they stacked that box and they did exactly the blueprint on how to stop the New York Football Giants. And I look at this game and it's like, do you chalk it up as just one of those bad games that they had? Or are we going to see repetition, multiple teams try and do this now for the rest of the year? Because Paul, again, Tynes gave you you're right. You're right again with what you said. Okay, I wanted Daniel Jones to throw over 300 yards, but like you said, you don't want to put him in the position to where he's throwing to, you said, with all due respect, a bunch of Marcus Johnsons out there in that sense. Slayton had a good game, 88 yards. Slayton had some drops, some untimely drops that we didn't want from him. Wan'Dale Robinson had himself a pretty 13 targets, 9 catches, 100 yards. Unfortunately, now he goes down. And he was that second-round draft pick to where it was like, okay, this is our guy. That was that Hunt draft pick to where like, this is our guy. We're going to go get him. But he hasn't been able to stay healthy and been on the field that much. So if you're drafting him to kind of take the place of a Sterling Shepard, who had struggled in the past to stay on the field, now you're kind of seeing the same thing with Wan'Dale, but like not even to go into that, but just the fact that they threw the ball over 300 times. I would feel a lot better if it was over threw for over 300 yards and it was a win, because that's what that team needed with a 300-yard day.
There was 3 turnovers to none. The Giants, no team can really win that way. The Giants certainly can't win that way. Look, the first interception. Look, when you throw the ball, what do they say? 3 things can happen. 2 of them are bad or whatever. He hadn't thrown an interception in over 150 passes. That was the most in the league active streak at this point. It's going to happen at some point. Look, Hutchinson made a great play. He drops. He looks like a stork out there. He's a big dude. He drops. Daniel's looking for Slayton, never sees the defensive end dropping. It happens, right? It happens. He runs it back 20 yards. They score. The second interception, it's 4th and 5. It's on the Lions 40. He's trying to make a play. He overthrows Lawrence Cager. I mean, I'm not going to go crazy about that. And then Hodgins, Isaiah Hodgins, who was forced onto the field because they need, he catches the ball, forced fumble, loses the ball. It's a problem. I mean, that's what happens when you don't stick the ball in Saquon's hands or Breida's hands and just run it, which you can't do all season. You just can't do it. I know a lot of people were really down on Daniel after this game, and I'm not. This was not a great game.
No way.
But, Lawrence,
No.
you weren't. I mean, you don't think he
Not
was
at all.
any kind of great regression or anything, was it?
No, he was forced into a hand that they don't have the guys to play. But certainly after the first drive, he went down there and let him on a touchdown drive.
Yeah, he did.
Right? Bang, bang, bang. And Kafka needs to somehow figure out a way to get Daniel running a little bit more. You saw things open up more when
He ran a lot. He ran a lot in this game.
He did, but he hasn't in the previous games. And so he accounts for 390 yards of 413 yards. I mean, I know that's a lot of junk yardage late in the game. Richie James kind of made a play, and some guys are going to have to step up with all these injuries. But overall, I just thought the whole plan on both sides of the ball. Talk about early in the game, O'Shane Ximenez with the hands to the face. Can't happen. It can't happen. You get the ball back there, they end up turning that into a field goal. You can't have that, right? And then there's the most egregious one was when the receiver, St. Brown, falls down on a screen and goes 12 yards. I'll say this about Wink Martindale's defense. He's a cool guy. He looks cool, wears the J's. Everybody loves him. But I'll tell you this, you better start getting home. I don't care that it's not about sacks. It is about sacks. If your edge guys cannot start getting home, you are going to lose more games than you win because they are just not getting any pressure from these outside guys. They're not. They had 3 pressures today, maybe 4. The Detroit Lions had 10 pressures. And Aiden Hutchinson was taken 2nd overall for a reason.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's all over the field. And I'm not here to single out anybody on this team, but certainly if they don't start getting home, the Dallas Cowboys just had 7 sacks on the road in Minnesota to bring their season total to 42. The Giants have 20. There's a reason they're not winning football games, and they just do not get home. They don't create enough negative plays on defense. They really don't. They're very rarely behind the chains. They just don't create enough negative plays, and it's going to bite them. They're going to have to start making these stops and stop giving up these 3rd and longs, which baffles me that they're one of the best defenses in the league on 3rd down, because for me, they just don't, I don't know. Maybe it was
let's not forget. Look at all the guys they didn't have out there. Adoree Jackson's out. Fabian Moreau is out.
Their whole secondary. Xavier McKinney.
McKinney is out already. It's Pinnock got hurt, right? He's the guy who's rotating in at safety, and then he goes out with a jaw injury. I think they took him to the hospital, for God's sakes. So, there's a lot of guys out there who you're like, this is going to be rough. This was insult and injury. This was a really, really rough game. Now, Lawrence, what did you make of Gano? Because Graham said he needed 4 IV bags today. That's how sick he was. 4. He had a wrap on his arm. I said, "What's that?" He said, "Oh, IV." I said, "Yeah." He said, "They just gave me my 4th one." He misses 2 extra points. 1 is blocked. That's what you see on those, because the special teams was bad.
Yeah, well, when you go that other direction, that's a tough area of the field. We know what the wind does down there, and obviously we saw it move it pretty hard to the right. I mean, if you're not feeling up to 100%, but I always say this, guys, when you put a helmet on and go play, nobody cares.
And that's what
nobody
Graham
cares.
said. Graham said, they put me on a field, they expect me to make the kicks. It doesn't matter whether I feel lousy. You got to make the kick.
Yeah. I mean, I had 3 surgeries in 2010 after the season was over. So I never once said anything about it. You just go play. So I don't think that was a big deal, but it's kind of rare for Graham, obviously, to miss anything. So I knew he was sick during the week. Kayvon was sick, right, earlier in the week. So maybe, the back, Dexter had a back. This team's beat up, and they just came off a bye. So they're not in a real good place physically.
And you got a game in as the time we're recording this, you got a game in 4 days. So when you come into that locker room, you come to break down the tape, and then now you got to start thinking about Dallas. It's like, where do you think this team is mentally? Both, Paul, you were in the locker room. We've just talk to me about the difference. Obviously, it's a win and a loss, but the difference in the vibe in the locker room from when we walked in London after the Packers game to what it felt like today. Did they feel depleted? Was there still any sort of confidence left? Like, what were they saying about their performance today, or how they feel?
Well, it's interesting. Saquon was asked directly that question about, is your confidence, is the team's confidence, where is the level? Is it shaken? He said 0. He said, we're not going to panic. We're not going to waver. We're not going to worry. He said, that's for you guys to go out and say that about the team. We're not going to do that. They know that it's coming. They hear it, that we lost this game. Everyone, said we were due for a lousy game. Now we got all banged up. Now we got to play the Cowboys. We have no chance. The season's starting to take a downward swoon. They know that that's the narrative that people are starting to say about this team. It's hard not to say that about them. So they were pushing it all off. Look, they know they can't. Jihad Ward said, I tell the young guys, sometimes you just get got. And he said, we got today. They did. And, by Monday, they're already starting to think about the Cowboys. This gets flushed pretty quickly, win or lose. Unfortunately, the injuries don't get flushed. They're going to be there, and these guys aren't going to play on Thursday. But look, we've said it. It's a season of ebbs and peaks and valleys and ebbs and flows. And this is Brian Daboll's first crisis point, quote unquote crisis point. Bad loss. Lawrence, you mentioned, some bad decisions you feel, bad injuries. No one expects anything going into Thursday night. So how does Brian Daboll summon them up? And if he can't get them to win, how does he get this thing back feeling right where, okay, we're 7-3. This was a glitch. It's going to be really hard because, it's a rough roster right now.
Yeah, they're going to have to make a lot of different moves with the practice squad and maybe sign someone. I know the Odell Beckham thing is going to come up, right? There was a tweet came out today saying he's going to make his decision after Thanksgiving. Could he help this team? I don't know. No one really knows how healthy he is, but at the end of the day, the Giants are built to where they just cannot turn the ball over. We've seen it happen in Seattle, and we've seen it happen today. When they turn the ball over, they cannot win. Most teams can't, but 3-0, you have a 99.9% chance of losing that game. I don't know the numbers, but that's typically where it's at, 3-0. So they're going to have to figure out a way. I thought the game plan today was poor too on both sides. I mean, a lot of crossing routes, they got the ball out quick, right? Goff wasn't sacked. We talked about that during the week. He's hard to get to. So you flush it. You do have a stinker every once in a while. We've had them even in Super Bowl runs. We've had stinkers. And you just got to move on. But again, the short week helps mentally just because it takes your mind off the loss.
Mentally.
But like you mentioned, these injuries are a problem when you're going down to Dallas to face a team that absolutely just destroyed the Minnesota Vikings, the quote unquote best team in the NFC. So listen, and Washington, oh, by the way, is playing very well too. They may be playing the best football in the division. Every team has a winning record in the NFC East, so it's going to get to be a lot of fun down the stretch.
So let's put this game to bed now. We also have 4 days until the Giants play the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. We have a short week for ourselves. So we'll kind of, like we said at the beginning of the show, we're going to combine this show from a post game to now we'll switch over to the pregame. I think that this is going to be Brian Daboll, Mike Kafka, and Wink Martindale's biggest game as coaches for the New York Football Giants, because you're going in, not many groceries in the cupboards right now. You're playing up against Chef Gordon Ramsay, and you've got to cook up a mean souffle to beat Dallas. And with the way that team, with that confidence, did you see Michael Parsons with all those chains on? I don't know if that was before or after the game, trolling Kirk Warner because he's wearing all the train, put that thing on like the dance for Antonio Brown and all. They're going to come after the New York Giants, and they're going to give them everything they can at home on Thanksgiving. So when we talk about a Saquon Barkley, and we talked about the pre-show, were they using him too much? Were they trying to do too much with him? You're really going to have to use him as a decoy this game, and not even like a decoy, use him in different ways to kind of you self-scheme, you self-analyze. You want to go and try and do something. If you're used to running to the right, you want to do some sort of boot play action to the left with that. You want to go against tendencies. You want to break tendencies this game. So I think for Mike Kafka, we got Breida. Breida got his first touchdown of the season this year. Breida had some carries on the jet sweep. I want to see him more active. You're going to have to be extremely creative with 4 days in between these games. And it's just, if the Giants are going to win this game, they have to play their type of football where they keep it within one possession going into the fourth quarter. And then you hope you don't turn the ball over and you make some sort of play on defense. But with the injuries that we just got hit, with the guys who just got hit with this new round of injury, it's going to be a tough one, Paul. It is going to be a tough one down in Dallas.
Oh, look, I mean, the only thing they can hope for is that the Cowboys are feeling too good about themselves and overconfident after, I mean, look, no one 40-3 against the Vikings. I mean, I don't think anyone thought the Vikings were, the purple people eaters of years gone by, but they had one loss. They had 7 straight wins. The Cowboys going in there and winning, okay, but not like that, I don't know what they do. I mean, Evan Neal had his worst game of his rookie year against Dallas in the first game, right? I think Evan Neal is like on the cusp of being ready to play. Is it fair to put a rookie in at right tackle after missing all this time against a guy like Micah Parsons? I don't know. They may have to, because they got, it's either that or Matt Pert to do that. It's going to be tough. I mean, you say do things different. The only thing good coming out of this game was that Saquon was not overused. He only carried the ball 15 times, and we said, before this, can they give it to him 30 times? They gave it to him 35 times against the Texans. Is that going to, wear him out for the Cowboys? Well, at least he's not worn out, right? He didn't run far, and he didn't run often in this game. So he should be okay going into that game. I think you have to load up and run the ball. I really do. And
you have to
I mean, find the tight ends, Nick Gates, extra linemen. You're just going to have to run the ball and try to keep it close. That's all, because
that's it.
You're right. Because, the recipe to throw it against is just not going to work. It's not going to work.
No, you cannot. You're going to have to run the football to get creative. The hell with getting creative. Line up, make Gates your fullback and run the football and try and figure it out. Because if you can't run the football, just like the Vikings couldn't today, you are going to get destroyed. And Evan Neal, if he does come back, think about this, guys. He played his first game at home. Imagine him going into that stadium. I played there a bunch. Right tackle and that crowd noise, come on. He may have to play, but at the end of the day, it's not looking good for them. I'm just going to, call it like I see it. It just... they're banged up defensively. I think they can maybe play better than they did today, but I don't know if their best is good enough to beat Dallas, to be honest, right? I don't know if it is. Right now, I would say no. I don't think it is. I just think they have too much.
They lost with Cooper Rush playing quarterback, right? And now, Dak, Dak threw like 3 incomplete passes against the Vikings?
Yeah, he had the old Phil Simms 22 or 25 Super Bowl numbers, and Tony Pollard had over 100 yards receiving and 80-something yards rushing. They're going to have their hands full. I don't know. They're in a bad spot. That's why today's game was so important for them to beat the Detroit Lions. Yes, it was such a massive game for, did we all think they were going to go down there and beat Dallas? Probably not. Like most of Giants Nation maybe thought 50-50. We'll give it a shot. But now you lose to Detroit and you add in all the injuries. I don't think there's a lot of Giants fans that could look you in the face and put their money on the Giants on Thursday.
Yeah, I would have sold out this Detroit game. I would have sold out. Like you said, I mean, I understand we couldn't get Saquon 30+ carries this game, but I would have come in with that mentality to where, hey, man, you're going to play against Dallas. I'll rush you a little bit, but because you're going to need this one. Dallas, Washington, Philly, then Washington all over again. 4 back-to-back division games is going to be rough. What's up, Tynes?
I am convinced, guys, and I know some of you may not be on this train of thought. I am still convinced that Saquon Barkley is hurt. I see it. Every time he carries the football. He turns his shoulders. He is not finishing runs. He didn't finish any runs today because he was getting in the backfield. But even when he gets the ball in space, I'm telling you, that shoulder is a lot worse than he's letting on.
His rushing per yard rushing average has gone down
since that
You're
shoulder.
right. It's like
Absolutely, it has.
three and a half.
He's hurt.
Yes. So, I mean, look, he had 150 yards last week, but he had 35 carries.
A lot of space, a lot of space.
Yeah. So
He's hurt, guys. I really believe that. I think he's hurt.
Well, you know what?
He's playing through it. God bless him. He's tough, and it's a contract year. But
that's even more of a reason for Kafka and Daboll to get creative and get him in space. I mean, obviously you're going to have to run the ball against a loaded box from time to time. But if he is hurt and if you are talking to the player and you're like, hey, how's the body? You have to find the way to make it as easy as possible on the player for him to make plays.
Yeah, hurting, I guess I should say. Hurt is kind of he's hurting. Like you could tell there's something going on there. I just noticed the way he finishes some of his runs that he is protecting that shoulder to some extent. But he's still still could be an effective player. I'm not saying he needs to be shelved, but
yeah. And the Cowboys are very familiar with the whole Thanksgiving deal. They do it every year, like the Lions do every year. It's a very tough, Lawrence, that place. That place is it's a party, it's loud, it's wild, it can be intimidating, the one thing I will say is it has some of the best food in the press box of any team in the league. And going there on Thanksgiving.
Chicken parm.
Going there on Thanksgiving, there will be, I'm sure, a full-scale Thanksgiving turkey extravaganza. So if I have to be anywhere other than home on Thanksgiving, I think one year I was in Washington. And Daniel Snyder and his crew, they tried, but
no good.
Jerry Jones is extravagant, that, and the food will be good. Put it that way. The food.
It seems like everything Daniel Snyder tries to do doesn't work, including the
press box.
Paul, the press box meals.
We're doing weigh-ins for the next preview show, just to let you know, man.
You have to tweet out the spread, though. I want to see photos. I need some photo.
It?
Yeah, I do. I want some photographic evidence, but I'm sure it's grand. It's an uphill battle. That's why today's game was so important. It really was. And we got to sit here and give a ton of credit to Dan Campbell and that Detroit team because they came in and played as good as any team we've played this year. I mean, they played physical, they were tough, they were disciplined, and they get to go home the victors. So. You said we wanted to make him cry. Paul, did he cry in the press conference?
I didn't hear Dan Campbell afterwards. Look, they've won 3 in a row. You know what I mean?
3 in a row.
And in their division, they're not out
of it.
In it. They're in it. Look, but like none of this is look, they lost to the Lions at home. Okay, I get it. Everyone was saying, okay, they're going to be 8-2, and then they go into Dallas. It doesn't work that way. And did anyone think that this season, which has been so magnificent in so many ways for the Giants, was not going to have a massive crater or speed bump? It was going to, and we are in it. They haven't fallen off the cliff yet, but it is right there. And so, look,
especially with the way the division is playing, Paul, that's the scary part. Like this Washington football team has had the toughest schedule to date in the division, and they are 6-5, guys. I mean, that D line is getting healthy. Chase Young is coming back. The Eagles won on the road, tough game in Indy. We're in the thick of it.
It could be a struggle for the Giants to win any game this year.
I agree.
Really. It's not going to. I'm not saying they're not going to win another game, but
sure.
They had 7 after 9 games, right? We all said 3 more and they're in the playoffs, and that's probably true. It's going to be hard to get those 3 more. It really is. Let's see. It takes a twist and turn. This one is not, it hasn't hit the cliff, but it's careening. It's careening. Let's see if they can kind of steer it back at some point.
Well, that's a lot to take in. I mean, it is a lot to take in. You said it. I knew we were going to hit a crater. I knew we were going to hit the pothole. I just wish we could have saw the brake light first. We saw the brake light before we just ran into that pothole right now. This Giants team, I mean, we ride the highs with them. We have to ride the lows. I think everybody, obviously we saw the Twitter overreactions. I've seen so many Twitter overreactions today. I just had to sign off that app, because, but I get it. And as someone who hangs out with the fans and has done so much stuff with the fans over the years, I get why everyone wants to go all in for every game, every single time. Everything has to be, Giants have to go undefeated or else, call the hotlines. Someone's going to do something crazy. And it's just a game like this. It wasn't, I don't think the fan base was too cocky, too confident. I don't think the players were. I just don't think they were prepared for the storm that was going to come in. And it was a dome team to come in and beat a team out in the elements. Giants now, again, 7-3 on the year, third in the NFC East after that loss to Detroit. Final thoughts before we wrap this episode up, guys.
Final thoughts. It's you buckle up, buckle up. I mean, there's a lot of games left. It's going to get cold. It looks like there's no chance that they can go win the game in Dallas. And then, we talked about the Commanders. They haven't even played the Eagles yet, for God's sakes. The Eagles are, have one loss. So it looks grim, but look, they could be 3-7. It would look grim. They're 7-3. These games are important. They're meaningful. And, we gave Brian Daboll on the staff a lot of credit, for most of this year. And let's see. This is where they make some of their money now is, trying to figure it out, trying to patch holes. It's not going to be easy, but, just as I think this is going to be a real divot, there probably will be a something that pulls the Giants back up. We hope. Let's just see if it happens. They're meaningful games, and that's not all you can ask, but that's something.
It is. And I think the exciting part for Giants fans is really there's 7 games left. Is that right? The Giants could win 7 and lose 7. They really could. If you think about it, they
can't win 7. They can't win 7.
They could. They could.
No.
They very well could. Did you think they were going to win 7 games earlier this year? No.
But
I'm just telling you.
No, it's not realistic to say. I think.
So is them losing 7 more realistic?
Is what?
Them losing 7 more realistic?
It's more realistic than winning. The Eagles are one of the best teams in football. They haven't even played them yet.
The Colts had them on the ropes. Listen, I think they'll split with the Eagles. We'll get there whenever we get there. But like Paul said, buckle up. This is going to be, and it wouldn't surprise me if they went down to Dallas and won, but I'm not going to put any money on it. I'll put Brandon's money on it. But it's a bad game. And I think we're all kind of overreacting a little bit to some extent, including us, because we were put in this position of, they're 7-2. They should beat the Lions. Well, the Lions actually might be in the mix here towards the end of the year, guys. The way they're playing right now, won 3 in a row, getting healthy. They got guys back. St. Brown and some of these young players that are developing, and that safety who was talked about on the pregame show, Joseph, nice player. They've got some nice players. So, and the running game's good. But yeah, happy Thanksgiving to everyone too.
Happy Thanksgiving, crew. Jake here. Before we hand to the Scotsman, I know Brandon had tweeted, you mentioned about the fan base and how they're thinking. I just wanted to read some of the reactions that we got, so you could see the frustration from the people.
Let's hear them.
That's _Rabin6. I think the most frustrating is that we know how good a team we could be, but the injuries are insurmountable. I don't know how we come back from those in 4 days. From Giants fan 1187, defense didn't do anything well. No pressure, turnovers, or tackling. The interior of the offensive line was awful. Shane, Feliciano, and Glowinski got no moment and offered no protection. Glowinski should not be a starter next year. Those are fighting
He
words.
struggled. He definitely struggled. I've already watched the game back on the condensed replay. He really struggled. Glowinski did not play well. Lemieux did not play well. I thought Feliciano played well. He played okay. Then I saw when he hurt his knee and he kept playing, and that's where he struggled a little bit. But listen, this team could get Bellinger back. You have to give Richie James a little bit of credit for what he did in the second half, right? We have to.
He bounced back.
And I think Richie's a better player on punt returns when he's playing in the game, right? He's in the game. He's feeling the game. So not all is lost with some of these injuries offensively, but I think where we're going to be hurt the most is you've lost Xavier McKinney, Fabian Moreau, and Adoree Jackson. And I don't know how long Fabian's out, but those are massive losses.
Will at 27, a little more positive. Giants need to get breaks and play the game they want to play. Hard recipe to rely on, even as well as his work so far. Still as excited as ever about the direction, even if I continue to be frustrated about the organization failures that have led to disadvantages. Today, from sports fan Isaac, what frustrates me most was we didn't see DJ keep the ball more in the first half. They keyed on 26, but something like you said, Lawrence, but DJ refused to run. So maybe that's something we see on Thursday. From Dougie Fresh 86 _ not letting Danny dime until they are down. What's with all the second and long, third and medium runs? Ki missed 56, not using the bootleg RPO early enough to take someone out of the box and keeping the D honest. So Lawrence, it seems like they're in agreement with you about DJ running the ball a bit more.
He should. And I think they should get him out on the move a little bit more too. I mean, they were using that a lot, but I think some teams are taking that away. So he's going to have to sit in that pocket. And when he does, it's not a good recipe for the Giants, guys. If they can't run the football, which they couldn't today, they get exposed. So, and holy cow, this defensive line, I watched just 4 all day long blitz Kirk Cousins. 4 guys. They don't bring any extra pressure, and those guys can absolutely disrupt an offense.